landing on the floor, I'll tell a very a quick anecdote. Although it's not really an anecdote. You know that story about why do we do things lying on our back? That question, why? Because when you're lying on your back, your musculature, your nervous system is no longer occupied with the activity of keeping you upright or keeping you in a particular position. So then you can ask yourself, is there even a better alternative than lying on the floor? Is there a better one? And of course, Feldenkrais being Feldenkrais, he comes up with a better one. He says, you know, the ideal scenario, and this is how he says it. He says the ideal scenario would be to be floating in a tank of water that is salty, has salt, so that because there's salt in the water, you're actually more buoyant and you're floating. And the water is exactly just the right temperature. So you don't, after a while, after lying in this tank, you can't feel anymore where you start and where you stop. And because you're floating, your nervous system is now not occupied with anything. Yeah. The float tanks. Floating. I can share this joke with Anna. I think Alan Wallace has that great story about float tanks, you know, where you have several shots of coffee beforehand. Do you remember that story? Oh, then we'll share that story later. You don't get to share that story. Yeah, float tank. It's exactly right. It's a float tank, or alternatively known as the Dead Sea. Yeah? Dead Sea, high salinity. You're in there, you're floating away. You think you might have got the idea from there. So, now, because the water's just the right temperature and there is no stimulus anymore, gravity is kind of like being eliminated. Now, the nervous system is not occupied with anything but whatever functions are happening inside. Now, if someone comes along and then presses on the sole of your foot, do you know what happens? Your whole nervous system kicks in as if you were standing on the ground. You actually imagine yourself standing. And he didn't say this, but this is what's come out of experiments with guys in NASA. Yeah, they've put people in these situations and somehow they balance them on a plinth and they're feeling quite weightless. And inside, because there is no visual frame of reference, they kind of eventually put them horizontal. And yes, they feel the pressures. But still, when someone presses something up against their foot, guess what the person experiences? I'm standing. I'm standing. The whole pattern kicks in. So the ideal scenario would be to do this in a float tank, where you make the smallest little contraction, and there is no friction. You just move. You can detect the smallest little differences. Yeah? That would be the next step. Or hire a space shuttle. I would like that one. Yes, it'd be nice. Oh, Jenny's promising. Now, so that's a rather longhand way of saying something that's pretty important here. I know that all of us are different shapes. And I know that when I lie on the back and I'm asked to lie in this X shape, that there's parts of me that there is no way I'm going to be able to touch the floor or press the floor or whatever. And even though I'm teaching the lesson now, when you're in a situation where you can have a lot of props, yeah, where you can actually put things underneath yourself, do this lesson with stuff underneath yourself, because then gravity is not pulling on you and you can actually just rest on it completely on the surface. Absolutely, yeah. And I acknowledge we don't have enough now, but I just wanted to say that because the experience for some of you will be different doing it now compared to if you did this by yourself, totally supported, so that there was no hollow anywhere between the back of yourself and the floor. It'd be a very different experience, okay? So a soft mattress, pillow top mattress, oh, even better, yeah, yeah. So I'm not a comfort bunny, but I do like creating conditions that enable me to feel and experience and do. And I know on a hard floor, that's hard for me these days. Okay? So please lie in the shape of an X. And in your imagination, run that string line. Now, this is a builder's metaphor. Run that string line from that right hand across yourself through to that left foot. And as you run that imaginary string line from hand to foot, right hand, left foot, notice all those different parts of yourself that lie on that diagonal. So there's the fingers of the right hand, the palm and the back of the right hand, the wrist, the elbow, the right shoulder blade, the right side of the chest. And notice now we're getting very close to the center of the body. And here we make a little jump. The waistline on the left hip, the left buttock, the left thigh, the left knee, the left ankle, the left sole of the foot, the heel, the toes. Thank you, Jenny. She's being really nice. She's giving you stuff to support. That's nice. And now run an imaginary string from the left hand across yourself to the right foot. And notice all those various parts of yourself that lie on this line. Just have a little checklist. Yep, that part. And some of you might find that using this imaginary device of a string running through you, which is different from a string running over the surface of you. Different, yes? If you have the string running through you, you're actually able to track a lot more through, because there's a reference, what that line is, what that diagonal is. Now, bring your attention to your right hand and touch the fingernails of the right hand to the floor, press them a little bit, and then release. Just the right hand. Press the fingernails a little bit into the floor. And for some of you, you'll feel that's a little bit hard. You really kind of have to stretch your hand, maybe even lift your wrist. Do that. In other words, let the shape of your arm change so that you can press the fingernails into the floor and then release them. Press a little bit, release. Press a little bit, release. Now, I'm going to use this word press many, many times, so I think it's good if we're talking about the same thing. When I say press, I don't mean destroy the floor. I mean, just exert enough contact that you can recognize that the degree of contact is more than it was a moment ago. That's pressing. And now instead of the fingers, could you press the back of the right hand into the floor? Just the back of the right hand. And you might notice that when you press the back of the hand, maybe the fingers then lift or something else lifts. So whatever along that line of the arm needs to lift, let it lift to enable you to press. Press the back of the hand. Don't do anything to take that arm away from its line, though. Yeah? Keep the arm in the line. Press the back of the hand, release. Press, release. Press, release. Press, release. And now the back of the right wrist. Press the back of the right wrist into the ground and release. And notice if you're in your experience, that is different to pressing the back of the right hand. Because pressing the wrist doesn't have to press the back of the hand. And why don't you alternate between those two? Press the back of the hand and then press the wrist. The back of the wrist. Back of hand, back of wrist. Hand, wrist. Until you can feel inside yourself that these are two different places that you can press into the ground and release. Now leave the hand and go to the elbow. Press the elbow, the right elbow into the ground and release. And as much as you can, keep that right arm in its line. You might need to rotate it. You might need to rotate the forearm. You might need to rotate the hand. That's fine. But the arm more or less stays in its line through that diagonal from the right to the left. Press, release. Press, release. And when you press, knowingly press. And when you release, knowingly release and stay released for a little bit until you feel the activity subside. That's really important. When you release, let all the activity subside and then press again. Press, release. Press, release. And now the back of the right shoulder. Press the shoulder blade into the floor, release. Now, I'm not saying press all of the shoulder blade. For some of you, you will only be able to press a portion of the shoulder blade. Do that. Could be the bottom of the shoulder blade, could be the top, could be the inside edge, could be where the tip of the shoulder is. But press whatever you can of the shoulder blade into the floor and release. Press and release. And do so in such a way that you don't stop breathing. That at no moment is there an interruption in the process of breathing. Now, from the right shoulder blade, go across yourself to the back of the left hip, which you can recognize as your left buttock, and press and release the left hip into the ground. And I know you've just made a big leap from the shoulder blade to the hip. That's quite an expanse through the middle of you. Yes, it's quite a distance. But press that left hip, the back of the left hip into the ground, and release. And press and release. And you'll notice that when you press the hip, some other parts of yourself on that diagonal lift. And I go from the buttock to the back of the knee. And this is a tricky place because I don't want you to try to force the back of the knee into the ground, but think of taking the back of the knee, that part that folds, think of taking that towards the ground. And for some of you, that will mean you'll need to rotate your leg, because some of you lie in such a relaxed fashion that your backs of your knees are almost pointing towards each other. and not the floor, which makes it really difficult to press them against the floor. So you might need to rotate the leg or turn the leg, whichever is the least amount of effort. And now press and release the left heel into the floor. So the back of the left heel. And again, you might need to rotate your leg, or you might need to roll your leg. I just realized before I used the word turn rather than roll. My apologies. And there you are. You've just pressed and released a whole string of different parts of yourself on that diagonal. So in your own time, could you go the return journey, press and release the left heel, press and release the back of the left knee, press and release the back of the left hip, press and release the back of the right shoulder, shoulder blade, press and release the right elbow, press and release the right wrist, press and release the back of the hand, and press and release the fingers. And I did say in your own time, so could you just go back and forth on that diagonal, pressing and releasing, and know where you are in that sequence along that string? So just know where you are. Where am I? Am I pressing and releasing the hip? Am I pressing and releasing the heel? What comes next? What comes next? What comes next? It's a sequence. And as you go up and down along this diagonal line, string, notice what's happening in the other diagonal. Just let your awareness spread. Get that inclusive awareness. At any point, as you're pressing, the other parts of yourself on that opposite diagonal lighten from the floor. Good. Let that be. Rest yourself. All right, now please return to lying on your back in that same exposition of your limbs. I like it. Exposition of your limbs. Yes. Now, you know those right fingers that you were just moving before? Could you just begin one finger at a time to bend in the thumb a little bit? Just curl the thumb, just bend it a little bit, just enough to detect it, and then stop bending it, and then bend the index finger and stop bending it, and then bend the middle finger and stop bending it, and then bend the ring finger, as if you're trying to curl the finger towards your palm, and then stop bending it, and then the little finger and stop bending it. So there's the sequence: thumb, index, middle, ring, little, and then back to the thumb. And make it the most delicate, soft, luxurious curling of the finger you've ever made. One after another in sequence. Curl, uncurl. Curl, uncurl. Curl, uncurl. Nice. Now, keep that sequence going. In other words, do nothing to interrupt it. That is where the major focus of your attention is. That is the foreground. Everything is background. And as you continue to curl and uncurl the fingers, press the left heel into the ground and release. Just do that several times, so that the pressing of the heel, the left heel, does nothing to interfere with the curling and uncurling of each finger. Good. And now press and release the back of the left knee. And the finger movement is foreground, and the pressing is now background. And then press and release the back of the left hip. And then press and release the back of the right shoulder. And now it gets a bit trickier because you're in the arm that belongs to those fingers. So take the time. Don't be in a hurry to press. Really make those fingers foreground. And then press and release the right elbow. And let whatever happens in your wrist happen. And now press and release the right wrist. And you'll notice that as you press the wrist, the whole hand lifts off the ground, but that doesn't stop you from curling and uncurling the fingers. And now finally press the back of the hand into the ground as you continue to curl and uncurl the fingers. And when you do that, you might find the wrist lifts. Great. Let that be. Rest again. And having done that, notice your state. What is the state that you feel inside you? Are you ready for a schnoozy schnoozy? Or are you ready to go? Which is it? Do you feel less activity inside, or do you feel more mellow inside? Which is it? Arrange your arms in that X position again. And please interpret this as best as you can, but please don't exert yourself to the max. Don't. Have the same quality that you just had as you were when you were curling the fingers. Could you now press all those parts that lie on that diagonal from the right hand to the left leg? Could you press all of those parts into the ground at once? So gently. And you'll find that sometimes one part leads and the other part follows. So I didn't say, you have to get it right the first time, but find out, what does that mean to try to press all those parts on that diagonal into the ground? And when you do that, what happens with the left arm and the right leg? would you be better able to press that right to left diagonal into the ground if you lifted, oh sorry, right arm to left leg diagonal, if you lifted the other two limbs? Try it. Oh, yes. See? Try. Pay particular attention to that right shoulder blade and the back of the left hip. Notice if you press those two places at least into the ground, how the other two limbs, the left arm and the right leg, just lift. Yep. And some of you are bending your legs a little, and you're bending the left arm a little. That's fine. So you don't have to keep those lifting limbs long. You can bend them a little. And you know, if you bend them, it changes their shape, which makes them lighter to lift. The next time that you go to press the right arm and the left leg, that whole line, could you intentionally lift the right leg and left arm and your head? And notice, where does it make sense to point your face towards? Do you leave your face in the midline, or do you turn your head, even the slightest? What makes sense? You're pressing the right diagonal into the ground, the right arm through to the left leg, that whole diagonal presses. Right. Now, find how much of you can you uncurl from the ground while staying with the right arm and the left leg pressed. That's it. Well, some of you are touching your toes. Nice. So, next time you're up, stay there. Whatever relationship you have, stay curled. And now could you rock on that diagonal from the left shoulder through to the right hip? Just rock on that diagonal. Here we go. Oh, it's a little bit unstable, methinks. Look, no hands. Very good. Beautiful. Yeah. All right, let that be. Did you do anything like this today? I think you might have this morning with Jenny, yes? Lying on the tummy. So not only can you work your extensors in this diagonal, you can also work your flexors in this diagonal. But let's see what happens if we go very quickly through that same process, lying on your tummy. So could you flip yourself, and we'll work on the opposite diagonal. Now, if we're going to be working from the left hand through to the right leg, so could you please turn your head to the right? And now you know what to do. First of all, identify that line. Imagine that string linking the fingers of your left hand through your arm, through your arm, through your arm, through your shoulder blade, across to the back of the front of the, through the right hip, through the right leg, through the knee, through the ankle to the toes. And the toenails are actually on the ground. You're resting the toenails on the ground. And now, in your own time, press the fingers, release. Press the heel of the palm, release. Press the elbow, release. Press the front of the shoulder, release. Press the front of the hip, release. Press the knee, release. Press the toes of the foot, release. Go up and down along that diagonal string. And because you already have established the quality with which you can do this, we don't have to do that finger curling thing, because you have a different basis. You have a different understanding to work from now. So continue pressing, releasing, and in that activity of doing so, you are clearly identifying which parts of yourself you can press against the ground and bring them into that relationship. Now pause a bit. Now just press one part of the string against the ground. Just press the left arm, the fingers, the heel, the elbow, the shoulder, press that into the ground. Stop. And now press the line of the leg, of the right leg into the ground. The front of the hip, the knee, the toes. And alternate. The whole line of the arm, including the shoulder. Release. The whole line of the leg, including the front of the hip. Release. And notice how you rock when that happens. And you rock on that diagonal. And now press the line of the arm and the line of the leg together. In other words, the whole line from the left arm through to that right leg. As much as you can press without stopping your breathing. And then time the pressing with the lifting of the other two limbs. And notice, by pressing the ground, does the lifting of the limbs become lighter? Yeah, and some of you are actually bending the left leg, which is great. So there's no imperative to keep the left leg long. Bend it as much as you need to, but don't kick yourself in the head. That's it. And now some of you are actually lifting your head with your arm. And now comes the question. When you lift your head, does that original choice make sense to you? Is it easier to lift your head with your arm if it's facing the arm or if it's turned away from the arm? Why don't you find out? Facing the lifting arm, the arm that's lifting is the right arm. The left arm and the right leg are pressing. That's it. And now the next time you have your head, your right arm and your left leg lifted, stay there and rock yourself from that right arm, left leg diagonal. Put the right shoulder on the floor, left hip on the floor, right shoulder on the floor, left hip on the floor, right, left. And keep pressing the other diagonal. And it's almost like that other diagonal becomes an axis for moving around. Nice. Oh. Okay. Let that be. Roll onto your back. Rest. So I've stolen 5 minutes of your time. I owe you 5 minutes. But tomorrow, please, if you haven't already, please do remember to write down those questions that we could discuss tomorrow, and that those that we can't discuss tomorrow, that we can actually carry over into that period between now and when we meet again. Yep. So if you haven't done that, do that. Please roll to one side, come up to sit, come up to stand. Feel what it's like to stand. Walk a little bit. And as you're walking, notice those two. Actually, just notice one diagonal, right, left, right shoulder, left shoulder, and feel what happens on that diagonal as you take a step and push off with the left foot, push off with the left foot, push off with the left foot. And then what happens on the opposite diagonal as you push, the left shoulder, right shoulder diagonal, as you push off with the right foot. As you push off with the right foot. You can actually push your fingers then. Look. Do you feel that something happens on those two diagonals? So you can go home and walk home like this. Yo, bro. Yo. Okay? See you tomorrow. Yo.